Perfect. Hi, everybody. All right.
Hello.
Hey, lady.
Hi, I'm so happy to see your face.
I know, likewise. It's been
How are you doing?
forever.
I know. I know. I
It's been
was like,
forever
I
since
want
we've actually seen each other's faces and actually like spoken to one another. I mean, of course I tune in regularly, but
yeah,
totally different circumstances.
actually speaking to each other is a different story of seeing each other's faces. So, how are you doing? How are you like adapting? What is going on in the state of Texas?
That is a very good question. What is going on in the state of Texas? Greetings from Austin.
I know.
It's being in the capital city, I think, has its advantages in that we kind of get a bird's eye view and kind of like firsthand information before the rest of the state in some regards.
Mhm.
Um, we are, of course, big on social distancing. We do have a stay in place order, but we aren't on an official lockdown.
Okay.
Uh, and they've been teetering back and forth between the government and public health officials kind of bantering back and forth about the proper course of action. Um, it's a little different here for Oriental medicine in that we aren't seen as primary health care
Okay.
practitioners. So we lobby a little bit differently in that regard. So right now, the last I've heard is that Oriental medicine in particular is looking to assist in triaging.
Okay.
So I think that actually is probably going to be the best route for us, or to at least try to stay open, so that way we can be considered essential care practitioners. Because we don't always just deal with the physical; we deal with holism. So we typically are dealing with people's mental health as well in a roundabout way. So we're trying to figure out the best way that we can support and help outside of being seen as glorified, med techs.
Yeah.
So. But
It's
aside
crazy
from
because
that,
we're so different here.
I
Like,
know,
and
I
you went
know,
to
but there,
school here, so it's like kind of crazy, like us doing our doctorate together, and then you go back home to Texas. And I'm like,
and my
wait, I'm
hands are
a
like so
primary care
tied.
provider and I'm a doctor, and you're a doctor over there, but they're not, recognizing you in the same way. So, I mean, I
Well,
value you. I know you can help.
I appreciate you. Which kind of goes hand in hand with our topic in terms of passion. So I've actually kind of been able to pivot a little bit and see where I can help on the back end. So, quite a few of my friends are ER physicians in Atlanta. Have a few trauma nurses that I know that are back home in St. Louis and a few other places. So I've been, educating them from an OM standpoint, doing a lot of research, as you've seen in our group, our cohort 12 text.
Yeah.
I've been submitting all the research. So I'm like showing them, the integrative approach and what's worked from our side. And one of the things that's been very interesting is that they didn't understand the relationship between lung and colon. So they're like, well, we're not understanding why we have diarrhea. I'm like, oh, here's why.
I can explain that.
I can explain that easy peasy. They're like, okay, but what about, the small intestine doesn't like, so they're like, what does that link to? I'm like, the heart. They're like, oh, that's why we're having all these cardiac issues. I'm like, totally. Here, try using, I was like, try massaging and palpating these areas. So I've been able to, educate on the back end, which is, as you know, is my passion. I'm a weirdo in that regard. But I've really enjoyed pivoting in that regard and feeling as if I'm of some use,
Mhm.
while still being able to be available to my own family. I have a husband and a son. Homeschooling has definitely been interesting with
Oh
two
my.
professionals with very dynamic careers. My husband's in finance, so he's very much essential. He's working overtime like crazy right now.
Mhm.
So that's been interesting, but we're managing, we're navigating. How about you? How's LA? I've heard
Um,
news from my mom, but
You know, well, it's also we're at this like stay-at-home order place, not an official shutdown, but as far as like up north in San Francisco, they're shelter in place. So California is like its own country, like it's so huge.
like
So
Texas.
it's different. Yeah, it's different everywhere. But yeah, for here, it's stay-at-home order. Essential businesses are still open. So I'm still open and practicing, but just at a drastically reduced volume. So rather than being in the at my practice 5 days a week, I'm there 2 days a week. Like telemedicine is starting to build up. I definitely saw kind of like this dip initially because everybody thought, oh, it'll be 2 weeks and I'll just come back to life after that. And this week, that's really been built up. They're like, okay, let me try this whole acupressure thing on a telemedicine visit. Like, you're right. Like, let's do some herbs. I want to see what else I can be doing. Cause like you mentioned, also the mental health component is becoming really important right now. And we know as acupuncturists, like it's like decreased stress response is like a side effect of acupuncture. You could be treating anything and you're going to have less stress. But now people are wanting like very intentional stress management. I'm seeing a lot of people who never really had issues dealing with stress before or had anxiety before, any signs of depression before, who that's the primary thing that they're concerned about. I think the first wave was all about immune health, and people are still concerned about that. But people are really starting to try to figure out like what's going to be the new level of normal and how do I adapt to this situation. And with any type of change, like comes a certain amount of stress, whether it's like positive or not. But that being said, like I'm kind of in a happy place. Like I really am enjoying the ability to pick up all these projects that I had on the back burner. Because you know me, I'm also like you. I'm a weirdo in that like I want to nerd out and I want to educate and I want to find really creative ways to still bring value to people and explain what this medicine can do, even if I'm not physically laying my hands on somebody. So I've been writing a lot more, which I love. Like I've been setting article pitches and like, really spending a lot of time at the computer, which I'm not used to, but it now turned into a happy place for me, and developing my online course. And I've been doing these lives, which has been so fun to connect with people all over. Like last week, I talked to acupuncturists all over the world. It was like Nova Scotia and like Australia and Finland.
Which is so enlightening because just to hear the scope of practice and the range of experience between everyone, it's interesting because it doesn't divide us or make us feel any less than between one another. We just understand that the medicine as a whole hasn't been completely like standardized or normalized.
Yeah, it's like
globally. So
changing.
So that was really cool to hear a lot of the stories. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I've noticed, especially working with first responders, is what do I do after this? Because, when you're in a high stress situation, so for people who don't know, I actually lived in New Orleans pre and post Katrina. So I dealt with all of that. So, riding that adrenaline wave afterwards, it's a bit much, and so there are first responders who are just like, okay, what do I do after this? Like, how do I come off of this wave? And how do I not just own having PTSD while I'm in the moment? Because there's nothing wrong with admitting that post-traumatic stress disorder is something that you may be navigating. But what I'm hearing from many of them is that they don't want that to be their life, their norm. And so I've been really pleased, to be able to not only refer them to different practitioners in different cities that they may be in, because luckily I have a great network, but also allowing them the space to know that it's okay to feel through this. It's a very numbing situation. It's a very overwhelming situation. And so reminding people to pivot into things that actually make them happy, even though it feels like we're in the zombie apocalypse, as my son calls it. Like, it's just like, it's okay to still be happy and all of this.
Or like,
Mom, it's a zombie apocalypse.
That's what I said the first time after all of this happened with the stay-at-home order, when Derek and I tried to go to Whole Foods, and it was literally like the zombie apocalypse. Like I just had never seen anything like it. Not here, in the US unless I was like in a disaster zone. Like maybe when I had gone down for like Katrina relief, like something like that. But it was so strange to like be like, I was just here a few days ago and everything was normal. And now there are just multiple aisles that have, you don't even know what that aisle used to be because there's nothing that exists.
Nothing there.
But yeah, I think you're very right. Like there is this opportunity to find like what makes you happy. And I think that's actually very different than just saying like, oh, I'm going to have a positive attitude in this life. I think we need to realize that there is a new level of normal going away really soon. It's wait it out. So we have to figure out, okay, how do we find joy in this moment? Like what types of things are going to like reignite that passion for us when we are limited to where we can go or, you know, the normal things that we would be doing.
Well, I think the first step is to be honest about where you are. And I think that's the hardest part is admitting that you're happy that you actually have the downtime and maybe you don't, you know, you're not bringing in the income that you used to, because now you don't have that filler or that buffer kind of blinding you from, you know, the direction that you may want to explore. You know, we try to be so pragmatic in this country in terms of, you know, career, money, pay off bills. That's the way that you're supposed to do it. And that's what's supposed to make you happy. And, you know, side note to that, I think it's going to be really interesting to see who returns to work after this.
Yeah.
Or in what capacity they return to work, right? It's like, oh, now I have time to see. I'm happy right now. Wait a minute. I shouldn't be happy. I don't have a paycheck coming in as steadily as I did, but I actually wrote 5 new articles, or I took an online class and learned 5 new languages. Like, let's reevaluate this. You know, the economy won't be able to thrive. Well, it won't be able to operate in the same regard. But I think if people can be honest about where they are and where they've been and acknowledge it, not in this from a space of being angry with themselves, right? Because you don't want to damage the liver, but you want to make sure that you are being open and honest and authentic about, okay, this is where I am right now. And I either like it, I don't like it, or there's some aspects that are cool and some aspects that maybe not so cool. And then once you can be honest about that, then you can navigate it from a place of intention. And there's a difference between like setting an intention and in manifesting something. And I teach a lot of that. For those of you who don't know, I'm a psychic medium too. So I do a lot of those classes. Shameless plug, check out my feature in oprahmag.com. Woo, yay me. But I'm not like Madam President over here. So should I bow? Do I?
We have, for those of you who are not in our doctoral cohort, Leah and I went to school together for our doctorate, and our cohort has a group text that we've been sharing on. And it's been really nice because, like, and Leah, I think you started it. It was like we were sharing information. We always share research. We always share, like, okay, updates, like what's going on. But, like, the shameless, like, shout out, like, Leah started. And that was, like, her, you know, being quoted in Oprah Mag. Like, that's amazing. And then I was like, okay, I want more of this. Like, I want to hear, like, more shout outs from everybody. Like, what is everybody doing? And, you know, Selena's like, hey, I'm being more mindful and, like, I'm tapping into my higher self and I'm loving that. And
like,
then, yeah, my, like, shameless shout out was, oh, I'm the new president of CSOMA. Because my cohort knows, like, all I want to do is be involved in growing the medicine. So for me, it was like not about that position, but it was about, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I'm practicing less. On paper, I should be like stressed and worried and, oh, what's going on? Because my normal life has been, you know, turned upside down. However, in the midst of all this, it was like, oh, wait, but my overall why is to grow acupuncture and integrative medicine. And like, now I have another platform to do that. So the amazing thing come out.
But the other side of that too is that we come from a very high achieving cohort.
We do.
Like cohort 12 at Emperor's College was like the overachievers of overachievers. So we're all just like, I mean, we're all very down to earth, very gracious, very humble, you know, human beings. But the women in there are just like,
yes. It was amazing, but that's how we stayed in
we got
touch.
an advisor kicked out. Like that's how overachieving we are.
That
But
is a true
back to
story. It was like,
we'll
it
tell
was
y'all
at
the
month one. It was like
what?
month one of our doctorate when we barely knew each other and our first advisor, and we were like, we can do
No.
better than this.
We're like, no, find somebody else, man. She's lovely. She's a nice person, but she's not gonna work with us. But shout out to Dr. Downey if he's watching. But no, I think setting intentions are very different than manifesting. Setting the intention is literally creating the foundation for what you want, your why, right? And so sometimes setting the intention means that you're doing that now, or it's revisiting it once the manifestation happens, which is the physical outward presence, or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the emotional acceptance or feeling of what it is that you've been trying to build and create. So for you, that was having a really great platform to grow the medicine. For me, I didn't know that I was featured in September until COVID-19. So, but I've always wanted to speak about the integration between what's thought of as magic and medicine, and how healing as a whole is a Rosetta Stone that just needs to be cracked. We're speaking the same language. We're speaking the same fundamental language. We all just need to realize that we're speaking different slang terms.
Yeah.
So,
All the different jargon.
all the different jargons, the same thing, right? Dispelling negativity, vanquishing evil is the same thing as, eradicating bacteria. I don't know about y'all. I've seen staph infections up close and personal. They are from Satan. So saying potato.
It's a true story.
But yeah.
And that's coming from an expert in skin and scarring.
That is me. Yes. My capstone was definitely on herbal topicals for burn rehabilitation and tissue management and tissue regeneration and infection management. So, but yes, I think that once we can actually be very honest and open about where we are as a collective, then the healing space is open at that point. And then we can hold space for one another, and then we can create our intentions collectively and individually, and then we can help one another manifest those things. So I would encourage everyone, practitioners and lay people alike, to really sit and be honest with yourself at this point and say, am I happy with where I've been thus far? And how can I utilize this opportunity to advance myself, to find contentment with where I've been? And instead of trying to focus on being so pragmatic and practical about the situation, what's my happy place? Because once you can talk about what makes you happy and like what gives you that sense of peace and calm, then that's when things can actually attract themselves to you. And that's when you start meeting the people that you need to be around. That's when you start opening doors for other people, and others open them in reciprocity. I've noticed that this situation has brought out the best and the worst in our society. It's been very interesting to see how we've pivoted from expecting the government to step in and handle everything, but actually watching the private sector step in and actually rise to the occasion as being the leaders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Typically everybody would just defer to the government and, let the system handle it. But I was very pleasantly surprised to see bipartisanship and, just all the politics and all the other stuff just like go to the wayside, and people actually say, look, on a human level, on an altruistic level, we've got to handle this one situation. And so I've found that to be beautiful. During this space, I've been happiest because it's given me time to really sit and be quiet. In the midst of all of this, we had to move homes, had an issue with our last place.
Wow.
Yeah, so as the world is burning, they're like, oh, by the way, you got to move. But it's good. I love our new space. It's great. But it's been wonderful to sit back, be quiet, to recreate my idea of home and what that means to me.
Mm.
There were a few things that, as a family, we were toying with, like wanting to split time between the U.S. and another country, homeschooling our son, things like that, right? And having more of a nomadic life, which is still slightly appealing, but I now realize that because of our dynamic careers, that's not possible. But had this not happened,
Mm-hmm.
I would have made as a family, we would have made a huge decision without having the test run. So now it gives me an opportunity to rethink what my career is. Also realizing that I'm a lot closer to 40 than I am 30, I have to think about I have to think about what longevity means.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, much like Nell, I do a lot, and my mind always outpaces my flesh. And so this is forcing me to rethink what I think of a classroom. Like when I think about teaching, and does that have to be teaching 101 to 4 or 5 different people?
Right.
And it giving so much of my time and my energy. And I don't think that we as a collective think about what that looks like in terms of how much of ourselves we're giving to a situation.
Yeah.
And if we're actually getting something in return.
Yeah, I think the recalibration is like such a huge piece right now. Like even just if you take the one singular thing that you spoke to about teaching, like I always pictured myself, like I've done public speaking, I've taught in classrooms, I've, sat on panels, like it's always in my mind been this thing where there's all these people there that I can bring value to and I can answer questions. And now reformulating, okay, but is that what it is really going to look like for me to teach? Like if, Derek and I have both been like really looking at through this situation, even before, like, what do we really want our life to look like? Like, what do we want our life to look like when we start having kids? Like, do we want it to be here in Beverly Hills? Like, what do we want to do? And we've always wanted to have that freedom of location, even if we had a home base. We wanted to create something where we would be able to travel and have that flexibility. And so now this situation is really like lighting a fire under us to be like, okay, well, this is your test run for that. Like, how do we make this work? How do we translate the value that we can both bring to a virtual space? Or, as things do start to open up, I think there's still going to be a shift. There's still going to be an expectation that you have virtual options, that you have flexibility, that there is freedom of location. So it's not going to just go back to the way it was.
No.
And if I love writing and I love teaching and I, like being in the clinic 2 days a week instead of 5 days a week, like how do we build that? Because I really believe that whatever your true purpose and your true passion is, there's a way to make that work financially. Like that will come. And if you look at the situation we have now, I mean, there's like unprecedented amounts of information and support out there for the financial piece. Like that usually is the first thing everybody's stressed about. It's very stressful right now because there's this change, but there's outrageous amounts of loans, like all these types of grants. We're having, money sent to our front door from the federal government because everybody's kind of on the same page with this, that they've been impacted.
For the first time in a very long time, actually.
Yeah. So when you look at that piece, I'm like, okay, well, what kind of right do I have to sit here and be stressed about my practice volume changing or me having to recalibrate how I'm making a living? Because everybody's doing that. So isn't there an opportunity here to find how to make a living with all of the pieces that really bring me joy, that I think I'm supposed to be doing to bring the most value to society? Like this is the time to figure that out.
But also to bring value to yourself. Like I have to bring it back to that because as someone who was groomed from a very early age to be of service to others, you forget to be of service to yourself. And a lot of people call that being selfish in a healthy sense, but it's more about being more restorative. I like using that word a bit more because you give so much, especially with what we do as acupuncturists. We're always giving. It's an energy exchange through needles, through herbs, through constantly. And if you're not making sure that that you're getting something back in return, and there's a contribution for yourself somewhere in there, it gets really draining really quickly. And as somebody who practices medicine and stuff on a spiritual level, like that was like a huge double whammy for me going through med school. Like, I'm reading for people in order to pay the bills, and because I love it and I love medicine, but jeez Louise, like, so it's like, and it was to the point where I would go to a restaurant with my family and they would be like, "Oh, how many in your party?" And I would say 2 because I would forget to include myself in the party.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
bad. It was bad. It was so bad. Look, it was me, okay? But it was that bad. But I say that to say, don't forget to include yourself in that equation, and making sure that the contributions are for all parties involved. You want to make sure that you are getting something back out of this too. Like, medicine is inherently a very altruistic profession. It's a very thankless job next to parenthood. So, make sure that you're at least having a way of thanking yourself. And I know that sounds kooky, and there are quite a few practitioners who beg to differ with me, but I mean, that's just the life experience I've had. I also think what's really cool, especially for you, because Nell is like awesome with public speaking. I always envied that about her and admired that, because I hate being the center of attention. But I think what's really cool for you in terms of the opportunity that you have is because you are connected internationally, that you have the ability to tap more into the collective consciousness of what the medicine really is, and and create like a conglomerate in a sense. But there's a more, any form of holistic medicine tends to be a bit more factioned off. We tend to be very introverted, and everybody scurries to their corners. But what I love about you is that you bring everybody to the table, and you remind everybody, like, we're in this together.
I appreciate you saying that. That's always been like what I felt like my purpose was. I always told you guys, even when we were going through the doctorate together, like, look, there are people, like, I'm a good practitioner. I get good results for my patients, but that's because I know people and I know how to empower people, and I'm an educator. Like, I want to educate patients on how to be better themselves. But there are a lot of people who are these incredible healers. Like, they do one needle and it's magic, and you can't even believe that, that happened. That's not like how I practice. I'm all about patient empowerment, and you don't need me forever. We're going to work on this together. But I knew that there are not a lot of people that can speak about acupuncture like I do, like to a person who's never heard of it before, who's skeptical about it, who doesn't know anything about traditional medicine. That's where my passion is, on that education piece, because we are all in this together. Like, so many chronic conditions are happening across the US, across the globe, and the conventional knowledge that we have, the conventional system that we have, is not working. So how do we make that work? It's not about like Eastern medicine over here and Western medicine over here. It's that like integrative medicine is the future. It's what is going to help people. So it's whatever that person sitting in front of you, that patient needs. And it's really that simple. So yeah, I love bringing everyone to the table, because I think we need different opinions. Like, that's even why I'm doing these lives. Like, I just want to collaborate with people. I want to hear other people's opinions and what other people are thinking. Because you can't do it like all in your own mind. I think there's so much to be said for just bouncing things off of other people and taking, the time to appreciate everyone's collective experience that they bring to the table. But I do agree with you though. Like, I'm not leaving myself out of the equation. Like, this certainly fuels me and I love it. But this whole situation, everything that's going on now with recalibration, has certainly made me realize even more how important it is for me to be able to work with Derek and have a life partnership with him. Like, I don't like us having these separate careers. Like, we've always talked about having a business together. This has really pushed that because it's like, oh, you say you want freedom of location, you say you want to work together, but then you're still both going off to your separate jobs and you're putting all of your plans on the back burner. Like, no, we know what we want our life to look like. Like, I know I want to have kids. And so how do we, within this new structure, find creative ways to, you know, fuel our passion and make our life work the way we want it to work and not make it dictated by, oh, whatever situation is happening, then we can't, you know, work around that. Like, we need to figure out, no, like, this is how we like to do things. And however, you know, the noise is coming in, we're still going to be able to pursue our joy and our plans.
And that is the key. Like, when the noise comes in, because it will.
Yeah.
It will. As someone who's been married, oh my God, I'm not going to say how long I've been married, but it's been married for quite some time. Trust me. That noise comes in, and it comes in loudest from those who are closest to you. And that's what's crazy. But when the two of you are in the midst of truly building something from yourself or for yourselves, that is when the noise comes in, and that's when you have to dig the deepest.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that you two will totally do that. But yeah, the noise will come.
Yeah.
In many forms. In many forms. It never stops.
No.
What was it? Like in The Ring? She never sleeps. She never sleeps, Rachel. The noise never sleeps.
I'm so terrified of horror movies. That like put me into a flashback. Like I just had like a heart palpitation.
Well, it's funny. So I've in my practice, I tend to, when people ask me about acupuncture, like, how do I view it? I view it as surgery for the soul, actually.
Mm.
Like, a lot of what I do is, to your point, I don't like for people to need me. I need to empower you, because if you still need me after a certain amount of time, like, then I'm not doing my job. So then I need to send you to someone else who's better equipped, right? But also it shows me that even if it's not me, then on your end, you're not ready for the transformation, and that's fine too. Mm-hmm. That's not a slight. But it's surgery for the soul, in that we are literally go here with me. We're literally manipulating energy, right? And extracting the abstract in a way that conventional medicine isn't able to. We're reminding the body how to excise and purge what isn't needed on its own. Yeah. And just because you can't quantify it in the same way that you can, say, I don't know, a brain tumor or a fibroid or something, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Because even if you want to argue placebo, that placebo effect still shows that there was some form of change or a catalyst that took place. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that when we, not just, using LF4 or stomach 36, which are great points, but when you really start delving into the mysticism that is acupuncture, you really understand the Taoist foundations of it, you realize that you're really reminding the soul that it's being housed in a actual corporeal, fleshly vessel. And now you two have got to learn how to interact and play. So I know it sounds like out there, but
no, because something really important that you said, and I tell people this all the time, is like reminding the body of what it already knows how to do. Like, that's what I tell people with any type of treatment plan, no matter how esoteric you're getting. It could be like the most basic, like, okay, you had this acute injury. We know exactly what channels are involved. We won't know what nerves, what musculature, but the body innately wants to heal. The body knows how to heal. It's almost like this crazy arrogance on our part to think that, like, oh, we're going to like combat that, we're going to mess that up. Like, no, the body already knows what to do. Sometimes it needs a push in the right direction.
Mm.
And I, when patients come to see me, and this is part of like the empowering piece, I'm just like very straightforward with my patients. And I tell them, you're here to see me for 1 hour today, but what are you doing in the other 23 hours of your day? Because these needles are powerful, but they're not enough to completely change something that you don't want to change, that your body doesn't want to change. Like there has to be some willingness on your part. And so seeing me for an hour, what are you doing in the other 23 hours? Are you supporting the treatment, or are you completely tearing it apart? And that shouldn't be scary. That should be empowering, because you're able to do that. You're able to support the treatment because your body is intelligent and it wants to heal.
If you hear humming, that is my 9-year-old. So,
Hi.
Who is much larger than last you saw him. He's 4'8.5".
I can't
and
believe
90 pounds.
that is
I'm
crazy.
5'5".
He was like so little 2 years ago. Like I just can't even, or it was probably like 2.5 years ago, because it wasn't was it toward the end of the
Graduation.
program? Like, okay. Yeah. Like 2 years
And
ago.
yeah, no. He is eating me out of house and home. But very quickly, I just wanted to say that I am extremely proud of you. Thank you for letting me hang out with the cool people.
I love how you just hopped on the live last week and you were like, hey, like, when do I get to see you? I'm like, next week, let's do it.
What's the doc got to do to get on, dude? Like, I'm not international. I'm in Texas. I mean, they swear they're their own country, but I mean, hey.
That's okay. And we could do it again, too. I mean, I'm telling you, this stay at home is going to go on for some time. So I'm doing them daily right now. As people start to go back to work and stuff, maybe we'll adjust that to a few times a week. But as of right now, we're going to stick with daily Monday through Friday. So anything you want to say, last words before we leave? I so appreciate getting to talk to you and you being here.
It's my pleasure. Always my pleasure. I adore you. Fun fact, I thought Nell hated me like the first trimester of school.
No, what happened, I rarely talk about myself in the third person, but it was like an out-of-body experience. Nell was overworking herself and managing a clinic of 80 interns.
No, which I came to understand. So I was just like, ow, hi, I'm just being nice. But no, shameless plug, check me out at ChosenEyes9 on Instagram. But more importantly, take 5 minutes or so and seriously jot down 5 ways that you can turn your I can't into doables. Like every I can't that you think of, like, oh, I can't do that right now because da 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 da. Well, what do you have to actually help you navigate that? So switch those really quickly, and you might be surprised at how much easier it is for you to actually pivot. Because a lot of times the one thing that's in our way is us. It's really not an external barrier. It's usually us creating the barrier.
Yeah.
Because it's taking on a victim mentality, and we all do it. Not pointing the finger. You take 5 minutes to think of. I'm just saying. Take 5 minutes to really reassess, like, what are some I can'ts that can be turned into I can'ts or I wills.
I think people will be pleasantly surprised at how that might even come easier now than it has in the past, with clearing out all of the noise and with being in the situation where you're very much in control of like what you're letting in your life or not. I think people will be, pleasantly surprised that, oh, maybe I have actually cleared out some noise and I am in a situation where it's possible to be a little more innovative or a little more creative with changing this perspective around.
You literally have space and opportunity right now. Like, literally, space and opportunity. So you can always reach out to Nell. You can always reach out to me.
Leah, I pinned both of our handles on here. So be sure to check her out. And then I'll save this on my stories, Leah. So if you want to record it, you're more than welcome to. But you guys, thank you for hanging in with us. I love this woman. So good talking to you.
And I adore her.
Bye.
Say hi. Say hi.
Oh. Hi.
All right. Bye. Take care.
Instagram preview. Bye.
Bye.